Okay, so today we'll be doing comparing decimals and fractions. So very similar to what we did last class, but this is just going to also involve fractions. So please have a piece of paper out. You're just going to write down a couple problems as I work them out, and you'll be turning in the piece of paper for your notes. So let's get started. So we will compare decimals and fractions. So the majority of you, when you're looking at these fractions, most of you know those decimals just off the top of your head. But I'm still going to teach you how to do this if the numbers weren't as nice. So I still need you to pay attention to how the procedure goes, right? So first we need to make all the fractions decimals by dividing them. So we cannot really compare a decimal and a fraction. We need them to look the same. So we could either make the decimals fractions or we can make the fractions decimals. And that's just the way that I prefer. So that's the way that I'm going to do the video. But either way is correct. So however you decide is fine. If you really don't know the way to do it, then you should be copying the way that I'm doing it right now. Okay. So first we need to make 1/2 and 3/4. We need to make those decimals. That way we can compare them to those decimals the way you did last class, right? So what we do is we divide them. So you need to divide 1/2 and 3/4, right? So remember, I've taught you that this bottom number always goes on the outside of the house. So although 1 is smaller, it does not go on the outside because the denominator is what goes outside of the house, right? So you're looking at, how do I divide 2 into 1? Well, we've done this over and over again, right? So this should be pretty easy by now. So we can't do 2 into 1. So we add a little decimal here and we add a 0. Okay, so 2 goes into 10 5 times. 5 times 2 is 10. And that's our answer. So 1/2 technically is the decimal 0.5 or 0.50, however you want to look at that. Okay, so this can be 0.5 or this can be 0.50. And those are equal. All right, so now I need to do the same thing. So remember, denominator or the bottom number is always on the outside of the house. Well, 4 doesn't go into 3, so I'm going to add my decimal since there isn't a decimal, and then I'm going to add a 0. Well, now I know that 4 goes into 30 7 times. 4 times 7 is 28, and I get 2. Well, 4 doesn't go into 2, so I'm going to add a 0. Okay, well, 4 does evenly go into 20, and it goes 5 times. Okay, so that is how you would make a fraction a decimal. So technically, 3/4 is the same as 0.75. So what I would do is I would compare 0.5, 0.25, 0.75, and 0.3. So please just write down the fractions and decimals and write down what I did in red where it's working them out. Okay, so now I have a little fresh screen for you. So now that they are all decimals, we can work them out and we can order them least to greatest, which is what you're going to be asked to do. So remember, 1/2 is the same as 0.5 because we just worked that out. 0.25 stayed. 0.75 is what we just worked out in the slide above. And then you have 0.3. So now remember the things that I taught you last class where you're looking at the tenths. So all of these have a 0 in the ones. So that doesn't help me, right? That doesn't matter. Well, now I move to the tenths, I'm sorry. So the tenths, this 2 is going to be the smallest. So that would be up first. This 3 is the smallest number. So that's going to be the next one. 0.5, this 5 is going to be the next one that you put. And then 0.75. So please write down them in correct order, least to greatest. So pretty much I just want you to write what you see down there that I circled in green. So that's how you would order them. Okay, so your homework will be very similar to what you see there. Now we're going to do something very similar to last time. And we're going to use the greater than, the less than, or the equal to. And we're going to kind of compare these, right? So 3/5, we're going to do the same thing that you saw above, right? And we're going to make it a decimal. So Remember that the denominator goes on the outside. So 5 goes into 3, right? Well, it doesn't go in. I'm going to add a decimal and a 0. Well, 5 goes into 30 6 times, right? And we get a 0. So technically speaking, this fraction is that. So now you're just comparing the decimals. So look at 0.6 and look at 0.25. Well, we got to look in that tenths place again, right? Well, there's a 2 and there's a 6. So that's bigger. Okay, so you should write the problem. So 3 over 5 is greater than 0.25. And then show me the math that I just did. And you'll do this. We're going to do a couple more. So if I have 0.50, right, and 1/6. Okay, so remember that denominator is on the outside. So 6 goes into 1. Well, it doesn't. So I'm going to add a decimal. I'm going to bring it up. And then I'm going to add my 0. Well, 6 goes into 10 once. And I get 4. Well, I got to add a 0. I got to bring it down. 6 goes into 40 6 times. Sorry, that's a 6. And then 6 times 6 is 36. And I get 4. I have a 0. I bring it down. Now, what you're noticing is that it's repeating, right? So I'm going to write it right there. That was a 6. I don't know why it's cutting me out. So 6 times 6 is 36. And then you're noticing that it's just going to go on and on for quite a while, and we'll have a repeating decimal. I'm sorry. Let me erase that. You'll have 0.166. I put the decimal in the wrong spot. So what this would become that you'll compare is 0.5 and 1.66. Well, I did it again. I'm sorry. That should be, I did that in my notes too. Okay, that should be 0.166. That's what we're comparing. So it'll be 0.5 and 0.166. Well, you got to look at the tenths, okay? So you got a 5 and then you have a 1. Well, that 5 is going to make that bigger. So please write down everything that I did. Okay, and I have 2 more. Okay, so now this is a little bit different, right? Now we have a 1s. We have something in our 1s, okay? So technically speaking, that decimal is going to be 3 point, and I don't know what that fraction is. Some of you know, but I'm going to work that out, right? So I'm going to just divide the fractional part. The whole stays, right? So that 3 is a whole. That's 3. But I'm going to find out what the decimal is for this fraction. So real quick, this will be quick. It doesn't go in. We add a decimal and a 0. 10 goes into 4 times evenly, right? Sorry, that's a 4. I don't know why it does that. Okay, so it goes in 4 times. 4 times 10 is 40, and that's your answer, right? It's just 4.4. Okay, well, if I have 0.4, what I do is I take that and I put it right there. So 3 point, and then my answer is 0.4. So I just put a 4 right there. So 3 and 4 tenths, right? That's how you would read that. And then you're comparing this one to this one. Well, the 3 and the 3, those are the same, right? So let me kind of draw. So that 3 and that 3, that's the same. This 4 and this 4, those are the same. So now we need to move to the hundredths, right? Well, I have a 5 and I have technically a 0. So technically, the 3.45 is bigger than the 3.40. Okay, and you'll see it one more time in case that was confusing. So we're going to compare 9.2 and 9 1/10. So technically, you're going to put your decimal right there, and we're going to figure out the fractional part. I'm going to do it a little lower to make sure it doesn't cut me off again. So 10 goes into 1. Remember that denominator is the outside number, so it does not go in. Put your decimal and bring it up. Add your 0. 10 goes into 10 once, right? 10, and we get a 0. So we're done. So this 0.1 goes in right there. So it's technically 9.1. So now I'm comparing. Well, is 9.2 or 9.1 bigger? And the answer is 9.2 because that 2 is bigger than that 1. Okay, so you're going to take a picture of your piece of paper and then we'll start practice.